The evening air in downtown Chicago carried a quiet chill. Michael stood by his window, gazing at the blurred city lights dancing beyond the glass. His reflection looked tired, but his eyes, those calm, sea-blue eyes, held a spark of anticipation. Tonight mattered. After months of dating Jessica, he was finally inviting her to meet his closest friends, the people who had been a part of his life long before love found him. He picked up his phone and typed, "Hey Jess, come by tonight. I want you to meet them." Jessica replied instantly, "Of course I'd love to. Should I bring something?" Michael smiled. "Just you." Jessica stood before her mirror, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her heart fluttered. Meeting someone's friends wasn't just a casual step. It meant she was becoming part of his world. She had heard about them before, David, Ryan, and Cole, Michael's old college buddies. The stories he told always carried laughter, nostalgia, and loyalty. She wanted them to like her, not for appearance, not for charming, but because she loved Michael deeply, purely. When she arrived, Michael greeted her with his warm smile. The apartment was cozy, dim lights, gentle music, and the smell of coffee and cinnamon. "You look beautiful," Michael whispered, brushing her hand softly. Jessica blushed. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Soon the doorbell rang. Michael's friends entered, loud, confident, full of energy. They laughed, hugged him roughly, and then noticed Jessica. "Ah, the famous Jessica," David said with a grin that didn't quite feel friendly. Ryan gave a small nod. Cole just smirked. Jessica smiled politely, extending her hand. But their reactions, cold, dismissive, almost mocking, it sent a shiver through her heart. Still, she kept her grace. She listened, laughed when needed, and tried to fit in. But deep down, she felt their eyes judging her, her words, her clothes, her silence. Michael, busy keeping the evening light, didn't see the pain behind her smile. When she excused herself to the balcony for air, Michael followed. "You okay?" he asked gently. Jessica hesitated. "They're different than I imagined," he sighed. "They just take time to warm up." But inside, something felt off, a small crack forming between his world and hers. And though the night was young, the story of Jessica and Michael had already begun to change, quietly, beneath the glow of city lights. The next morning arrived with a soft drizzle tapping against the window panes. Jessica sat in the kitchen, staring into her cup of coffee as the steam curled upward and disappeared. Michael was moving around behind her, humming an old tune, pretending that everything felt normal. But both of them knew. Last night hadn't gone the way they hoped. When she finally looked up, she caught him watching her. "You didn't sleep well," he said quietly. Jessica tried to smile. "Neither did you." He walked over, sitting opposite her. "About last night." They didn't mean to sound rude. David jokes like that all the time. Ryan just takes a while to open up. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "And Cole?" Michael hesitated. "Cole's complicated. He's been through a lot lately." "Michael," she said softly, "you don't have to make excuses for people who don't respect me." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're right. I didn't expect them to act like that." For a long moment they sat in silence, the sound of rain filling the space between them. It wasn't anger that lingered in the air. It was disappointment, subtle and heavy. Later that day, Michael went out to meet his friends again. He told Jessica he had to clear a few things up. She didn't stop him. She simply nodded, kissed him on the cheek, and said, "Just be honest with them." The cafe was nearly empty when Michael arrived. David and Ryan were already there, sipping black coffee. Cole was late, as always. "So," David began, "your girl didn't like our jokes, huh?" "David," Michael said slowly, "those weren't jokes. You were picking on her." Ryan raised a brow. "We were just testing her, man. You're serious about her, and we wanted to see if she could handle the heat." "The heat?" Michael repeated. "This isn't college anymore. You don't test people like that." David leaned back, arms crossed. "You've changed, Mike. Ever since Jessica showed up, you've gone soft." Michael's jaw tightened. "If being kind is soft, then maybe you should try it sometime." Ryan laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "Relax, nobody's attacking you." Before Michael could respond, Cole arrived, sunglasses still on, even though the day outside was gray. He ordered an espresso and sat down without a word. "Cole," Michael said after a moment, What was your problem last night? Cole looked at him blankly. Problem? You barely spoke to Jessica. When you did, you were sarcastic. What's going on? Cole leaned forward, smirking faintly. You really want to know? Fine, I don't trust her. Excuse me? She's too perfect, Cole said. The way she talks, the way she acts, like she's rehearsed everything. People like that always want something. Michael's eyes darkened. You don't know her. And you do? Cole countered. You've been seeing her, 6 months? That's not knowing. That's dreaming. The word stung, but Michael stayed quiet. He knew Cole's bitterness wasn't new. It had been there long before. Jessica entered their lives. Still, hearing it spoken aloud made him realize how different his world had become. He stood up, pushing the chair back. You guys can think what you want. But if you can't respect her, you don't respect me. David scoffed. Don't be dramatic. Michael didn't answer. He just left. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city smelled clean, almost forgiving. He pulled out his phone and texted Jessica. Can I come over? Need to see you. Always, she replied. When he reached Jessica's apartment, she opened the door before he could knock. She looked worried but calm, the kind of calm that came after deciding not to be angry anymore. Did you talk to them? She asked. Yeah, he said, taking a deep breath. It didn't go well. I figured, she whispered. They don't like me. They don't know you, he corrected. And I don't care what they think. She smiled faintly. You should. They're your friends. Michael shook his head. They were, but maybe not the kind I need anymore. Jessica stepped closer, resting her hand on his chest. Michael, I don't want to be the reason you lose people. He covered her hand with his. Then let's not lose each other. That evening they cooked together, pasta her favorite. They didn't talk about last night again, but the unspoken promise between them grew stronger. While they ate, Jessica asked quietly, Why do you think people hurt others just to feel strong? Michael looked at her, surprised by the depth in her voice. Maybe because they've been hurt too. Maybe because it's easier than admitting they're lonely. She nodded. Do you ever feel lonely even when you're surrounded by people? He thought about it. I used to, but not with you. She smiled softly. Good. Later, as they sat on the couch, Jessica rested her head on his shoulder. Do you think your friends will ever accept me? I don't know, he admitted. But I'll make sure their opinion doesn't define us. Jessica looked up at him. That's brave. Not brave, he said, kissing her forehead. Just honest. For a long time, they stayed like that, quiet together, listening to the city hum outside the window. But deep inside Jessica's heart, something unsettled was still moving. A small whisper of doubt she couldn't silence. She wanted to trust that love was enough. But part of her wondered if Michael's loyalty to her would stand the test of friendship and pride, because sometimes love doesn't just need to be felt. It needs to be defended, again and again until the world finally understands, and that world was about to test them more than either of them knew. Days turned into a strange quiet. Jessica and Michael still talked, still smiled, still shared meals, but something invisible had settled between them, like fog refusing to lift. Michael tried to keep their days normal. He took her to her favorite park, bought her coffee from the little cafe near the river, told her stories about his childhood. But every time he mentioned his friends, Jessica's eyes drifted away. One evening, as the sun melted behind the city skyline, she asked softly, Did they message you? Who? David, Ryan, or Cole? Michael hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, they think I'm overreacting. Jessica's lips tightened. And you? I think they don't understand what they did. She sighed and turned her face toward the sunset. Some people never do. That night, when Michael returned home after dropping Jessica off, his phone buzzed again. Cole, we need to talk. It's about Jessica. Michael frowned, his gut twisting. What now? He replied. Cole, not here. Come to the pub. Just you. Michael almost ignored it, but curiosity, or maybe fear, won. He grabbed his jacket and left. The pub smelled of beer and stale air. Cole was already there, leaning against the bar, half a drink in his hand. Didn't think you'd come, Cole said, smirking. Make it quick, Michael replied. What do you want? Cole swirled his glass, watching the liquid spin. You ever wonder why she's so quiet about her past? Michael frowned. What are you talking about? She avoids talking about her family, her job before Chicago. It's like she appeared out of nowhere. Michael crossed his arms. That's not your business, Cole. Cole's grin faded. It is if you're walking into something blind. I've seen people like her before, charming, polite, but hiding something big. Michael felt anger rise in his chest. You don't know her. Cole leaned closer, his voice low. Then ask her. If she's as honest as you think, she'll tell you. Michael didn't answer. He left the pub before his temper could break. That night, lying awake in bed, he stared at the ceiling, Cole's words echoing in his mind. He didn't want to believe any of it, but a small voice whispered, what if he's right? The next morning, Jessica arrived at his apartment with a small smile and her favorite pastries. Breakfast surprise, she said lightly, but her eyes searched his face. You okay? You look tired. Didn't sleep well, he admitted. She poured coffee for both of them, sitting across from him. Something on your mind? He hesitated. Can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest. Her expression softened, though a shadow passed across her eyes. Always, Cole said. You never talk about your past. Before Chicago. About your family, your old life. Jessica froze. For a second, everything stopped, the air, the sound of the street below, even the ticking clock on the wall. Then she spoke quietly. Because it hurts. Michael's heart sank. Jess, I didn't mean… No, she interrupted, forcing a small smile. It's okay. You have a right to ask. She looked down at her hands. My parents died in a car accident when I was 21. After that, I moved around a lot, new cities, new jobs, trying to start over. Chicago was supposed to be my clean slate. Michael reached for her hand, guilt flooding his chest. Jessica, I didn't know. I'm sorry. She squeezed his hand gently. You couldn't have. Because I didn't want anyone to. There was silence, but this time it wasn't uneasy. It was filled with something fragile, something real. Then she looked up, her eyes glassy. Michael, if your friends can't trust me, I understand. But if you start to doubt me because of them, I'll know this isn't love anymore. Her words hit him harder than any insult ever could. I don't doubt you, he said quietly. I just don't want to lose you. She stood, kissed his forehead, and whispered, then don't let them make you. Later that evening, Michael sat alone at his desk, staring at his phone. Cole's message still glowed on the screen. He deleted it without replying. But what he didn't know was that Cole wasn't done. The next time, Cole wouldn't just use words, he would use proof. Or what looked like it. And the uneasy silence between love and suspicion would begin to turn into something darker. The following week passed in a strange calm. Jessica and Michael seemed closer again. Dinners, late-night walks, quiet mornings filled with laughter and soft conversations. It almost felt like the world had forgiven them. But peace sometimes is the silence before a storm, the unexpected message. It was a Wednesday evening when it happened. Michael was working late at the office. Papers spread across his desk when his phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, assuming it was another work email. Then it buzzed again and again. When he checked, he froze. The messages were from an unknown number. And attached to them was a photo. It was Jessica, sitting at a cafe with a man he didn't recognize. The photo looked recent. Her hair was the same, her jacket familiar, one she had worn just a few days ago. The message below read, Still think she's being honest with you? Michael's heart started pounding. He stared at the picture for a long moment, trying to understand. The man across from Jessica was leaning forward, smiling. Jessica was smiling too, a soft, genuine smile that twisted something deep inside Michael. Another message came. You deserve to know who she really meets when you're not around. He felt something inside him break, not completely, but enough to let doubt slip in. The weight of doubt. That night when Jessica called, her voice was warm. Hey, are you coming over? I made lasagna. Michael hesitated. Yeah, maybe a bit later. Got stuck at work. He could hear the smile in her voice fade slightly. Okay, don't work too hard. When the call ended, he sat there staring at the photo again. Was it real? Was it old? And who would send it to him? He already knew the answer. Cole. Anger flared inside him. But beneath it, fear whispered. What if Cole wasn't lying this time? The confrontation. The next evening, Michael finally went to Jessica's apartment. She greeted him at the door with her usual gentle smile. but he couldn't bring himself to smile back. "What's wrong?" she asked, instantly sensing it. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed her the picture. The color drained from her face. "Where did you get this?" "Someone sent it to me," he said coldly. "Who is he, Jessica?" Her voice trembled. "Michael, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what to think," he said. "Because right now it looks like you've been lying to me." Jessica took a step closer, tears forming in her eyes. "He's my cousin. His name is Evan. He just moved to Chicago. We met for coffee. I didn't tell you because I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think I had to explain every detail of my life." Michael's chest tightened. "Why would someone send me that picture then?" She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Because someone wants to hurt us." He stared at her for a long moment, trying to read the truth in her eyes. They didn't look like a liar's. They looked like someone exhausted from being misunderstood. But the picture was still in his hand, and the doubt was still in his heart. Between truth and fear, Jessica walked to the window, her shoulders trembling. "Michael," she whispered, "I can handle your questions, but not your silence, not this look in your eyes." He took a deep breath. "I just need time." "Time," she repeated softly. "That's what people say before they walk away." "Jess, don't." She turned around, pain flashing across her face. "I fought too hard to start over. Don't make me fight you now." He reached out, but she stepped back. "Please go, Michael. Before we say things we can't take back." Michael hesitated, then lowered his hand. The picture in his phone felt heavier than any truth he'd ever known. When he finally walked out, Jessica watched from the window, her reflection blurred by tears. The storm inside. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the photo. The smile. The message. He wanted to believe Jessica. He wanted to erase Cole's words from his mind. But love, once cracked, never feels the same. It becomes something fragile, needing proof to breathe again. At 3 a.m., he finally texted Cole. "You sent it, didn't you?" Cole replied within seconds. "I told you she wasn't what she seems. She says that man's her cousin. Believe what you want, Mike, but I've got more." Michael stared at the screen, his heart sinking deeper into the storm. He didn't know yet that the picture and the lies that followed were only the beginning. Because in the days ahead, both love and trust would be tested in ways neither of them had ever imagined. The next morning came gray and quiet, the kind of morning where even sunlight seemed afraid to show itself. Michael sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, staring at the messages from last night. Cole's last words echoed in his mind. "I've got more." He knew meeting Cole again was a mistake, but part of him needed answers or maybe closure. A meeting in the shadows. The cafe was nearly empty when Michael arrived. Cole was already there, seated in the corner, a smug grin on his face. "Didn't think you'd actually come," Cole said. Michael didn't sit right away. "You said you had proof." Cole took a sip of his coffee and pulled out his phone. "I do. But before I show you, I want you to remember, I'm doing this because I care about you." "Just show me," Michael snapped. Cole slid the phone across the table. On the screen was a short video, grainy, but clear enough to see Jessica entering a hotel lobby. She was alone, carrying a small bag, her expression unreadable. The timestamp was from 2 nights ago, the same evening she'd told Michael she was home early, watching a movie. Michael felt his chest tighten. "Where did you get this?" "Doesn't matter," Cole said. "What matters is why she was there." Michael didn't respond. The sound of rain against the cafe window filled the silence. "Face it, Mike," Cole continued, leaning back. "You've been blinded by her charm. She's hiding something." Michael stood abruptly, pushing the chair back. "Stay out of my life, Cole." Cole raised his hands in mock innocence. "Fine, but when the truth hits you, remember who tried to warn you." Doubt and distance. When Michael returned home, the city outside his window looked blurred, a world he no longer trusted. He replayed the video again and again, trying to find something and anything that made sense. Maybe she was meeting her cousin again. Maybe she was just helping someone. But why lie about it? By evening, his thoughts had turned into a storm. He finally called her. "Hey, Michael." Jessica's voice came through, gentle and warm as always. "I was just about to call you. Are you okay?" He swallowed hard. "Where were you 2 nights ago?" She hesitated. "Home? Why?" His heart dropped. "Don't lie to me, Jessica." "I'm not," she said quickly, confusion in her tone. "Then what were you doing at the Belmont Hotel?" Silence, the kind that breaks hearts. "Who told you that?" she whispered. "Doesn't matter," he said. "Just answer the question." After a long pause, Jessica spoke, and her voice trembling. "I can't tell you." "You can't or you won't?" "I promised someone I wouldn't," she said. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. "You promised someone? Jessica, do you hear yourself?" Tears filled her voice. "Please, Michael, just trust me. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" he asked, his own voice cracking. She didn't answer. The line went silent except for the sound of her quiet breathing. And then softly, "I'm sorry." The call ended. The breaking point. That night, Michael sat alone in the dark. The video replayed in his mind like a cruel loop. Her face, the hotel, the silence. Every time he thought of calling her again, his pride stopped him. Every time he tried to believe her, doubt whispered louder. When dawn finally came, he hadn't slept. He walked to the park where they used to meet. The bench where she once laughed about how the world looked kinder through coffee steam. Now the same world felt cold and heavy. Jessica's secret. Meanwhile, Jessica sat in her small apartment, clutching her phone, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to tell him everything, about the reason she went to that hotel, the promise she had made. But she couldn't. Not yet, because some promises weren't just secrets. They were protections. She looked at the photo on her dresser, her cousin Evan, smiling weakly in a hospital bed. The truth was painful. Evan had relapsed into his old addiction, and she'd been the one helping him check into a rehabilitation program. The hotel wasn't a meeting place, it was the clinic's partnership center. But Evan had begged her not to tell anyone, not even Michael. He didn't want to be judged again. And Jessica had agreed. Now that promise was tearing her heart apart. 2 hearts apart. Days passed without a word. Michael avoided her calls. Jessica stopped sending messages. Everywhere he went, her memory followed, her laugh, her warmth, the way she said his name like it meant something sacred. And yet anger kept his heart chained. One evening, David showed up at his apartment. Unlike Cole, his tone was softer, almost regretful. "Mike, I heard what happened," he said. "I think Cole's gone too far." Michael looked up. "What do you mean?" David sighed. "That video, it wasn't his. He got it from someone who edits security footage. It's real, but not the whole story." "What?" "He cropped the part where another man joins her, a man wearing a hospital band. Looked sick, weak, maybe family. I don't know." Michael's heart skipped. "A hospital band?" David nodded. Cole wanted to prove he was right, not find the truth. Michael didn't wait another second. He grabbed his coat and ran into the night. "I know," Michael said softly. "David told me." Jessica pulled back, searching his eyes. "Do you believe me now?" He nodded slowly, guilt heavy in his voice. "I should have never doubted you." She wiped her tears and whispered, "You're human. We both are. But please, Michael, next time fight for me before you question me." He closed his eyes and kissed her forehead. "I will." Outside, the rain began to fall again, but this time it sounded like forgiveness. The rain had stopped by morning, but the silence between Jessica and Michael lingered like fog that refused to lift. They had made peace, or at least said they did. Yet something in their eyes still carried yesterday's storm. Michael brewed 2 cups of coffee, just the way Jessica liked it. 1 spoon of sugar, a touch of cream. She smiled faintly when he handed it to her. "Thank you," she said softly. But even her smile felt tired. They sat across from each other, the sound of coffee cups on wood the only thing connecting them. Forgiveness had been spoken, but trust was still missing. The space between words. "Michael," Jessica began quietly, "I'm glad you came back last night." He looked up from his cup. "I should have come sooner." She shook her head. "It's not about when you came. It's about why you left." Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I panicked. I thought—" "You thought I was lying," she finished for him. He didn't deny it. Jessica looked out the window. When you fought so hard to protect someone else, and the person you love doesn't trust you, it hurts more than anything. Her words pierced him. He wanted to reach for her hand but stopped halfway, unsure if he had the right anymore. At work, the whisper spread. That week, things didn't get easier. Michael returned to the office, trying to drown his thoughts in work. But whispers followed him. Cole had been busy. The video was now floating among their colleagues, twisted into rumors. Did you see it? Jessica from marketing? Someone murmured behind him. I heard she's been cheating for months. Michael clenched his fists. His blood boiled. When he found Cole in the hallway, he didn't hesitate. You went too far, Michael said through gritted teeth. Cole smirked. What? Sharing the truth? Michael grabbed his collar. You edited the video. You lied. Relax, Cole sneered. Everyone already knows who she really is. Before Michael could stop himself, his fist connected with Cole's jaw. The office went silent. Cole stumbled back, blood on his lip, but the smirk stayed. Michael was called into HR an hour later. He didn't care. All he could think about was Jessica, and how she didn't deserve any of this. Jessica's breaking point. That evening, Jessica sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through messages she wished she hadn't read. You should be ashamed. People like you don't deserve love. Michael's too good for you. Her hands trembled. How had her private pain become public humiliation? When Michael finally arrived, she was sitting on the floor, tears running down her cheeks. He rushed to her side. Jess, what happened? She showed him her phone. Everyone knows, Michael. That video, it's everywhere. His heart dropped. He knelt beside her, cupping her face. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have protected you. No, she whispered, shaking her head. You can't fight the whole world. Then let me fight with you, he said, his voice trembling. Please don't give up now. The decision. Jessica stood up slowly, her eyes red but fierce. I'm leaving the city for a while, she said. Michael froze. What? I need time. I need to breathe, to find myself again, away from all this noise. He stepped closer. And me? She smiled sadly. You'll always be in my heart, Michael. But right now, loving you feels like standing in a storm that never ends. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. Don't go. We can fix this together. She reached up and touched his face gently. Maybe we can, but not today. Then she picked up her bag, the same small one from that hotel night, and walked toward the door. Jessica, he called softly. She turned, tears shining in her eyes. Will you come back? She hesitated. If love is still waiting when I do, yes. The door closed. The echo lingered longer than the sound itself. The empty apartment. Michael stood there for a long time after she left. Her scent still lingered in the air, soft jasmine and sadness. He looked around the room, her cup on the table, her scarf on the chair, her photo on the wall. He touched the frame gently and whispered, I'll wait. Outside, thunder rumbled again, as if the world itself was reminding him that love, like storms, always leaves something behind. The city felt different without Jessica. Michael still went to work, still drank his morning coffee, still passed the same streets. But everything looked faded, as if color had quietly left with her. Nights were the worst. That was when her voice echoed the loudest in his mind. If love is still waiting when I come back, he had promised he would wait. He just hadn't realized how hard waiting could be. Jessica's new beginning. Jessica moved to a smaller city by the coast, far from the chaos and whispers. The air smelled of salt and quiet beginnings. She found a small apartment above a bookstore, got a part-time job organizing their window displays, and tried to start again. But no matter how far she went, Michael's name still lived in her heart. Every time she saw the ocean, she thought of his voice, calm, deep, steady. The way he'd always said her name like it mattered. One night, unable to sleep, she picked up her pen and wrote, Dear Michael, I don't know if I have the right to write this, but sometimes silence feels heavier than words. The sea here reminds me of you. Calm on the surface, storm underneath. I miss the way you used to listen, even when you didn't understand. I hope you're okay. I hope you still remember how to smile. She didn't sign it with love, just Jessica. And she mailed it the next morning. Michael's reply. When Michael saw the envelope with her handwriting, his heart skipped. For a moment, he just held it, afraid to open it, afraid it might end the only connection he still had left. Then he unfolded the letter and read it 3 times. Her words felt like warmth on a cold day. He sat down and began to write back. Jessica, I didn't think I'd hear from you again. The apartment feels like a museum. Everything reminds me of you. I still make coffee for 2 out of habit. Cole got fired last week. Maybe karma still exists. I miss you. Not just the way you smiled, but the peace you brought to my chaos. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. He signed it. Michael. A bridge of letters. Weeks turned into months. They began exchanging letters every Sunday. Sometimes they wrote about ordinary things, the weather. New books, new coffee flavors. Other times they wrote about the nights they couldn't sleep. The memories that still hurt. And the fear of what would happen if they met again. Jessica wrote, "Do you think love can survive distance?" Michael replied, "If love is real, distance just becomes another test." Their letters became a bridge, fragile, but strong enough to carry feelings that words alone could not contain. Jessica's realization. One morning, while sorting through books at the store, Jessica found an old novel titled When Hearts Return. The story was about 2 people who met too early, broke apart, and found each other again when the world was kinder. That night she wrote to Michael, "Maybe we were just not ready for each other before. Maybe love has its own timing, cruel but right. I want to believe ours isn't over." Michael's night of truth. When her letter arrived, Michael was sitting on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker. He read it once, then again, and smiled for the first time in weeks. He picked up his pen. "Jessica, I don't want a perfect love story. I just want the kind where 2 people never stop trying. When you're ready to come home, I'll be waiting where you left me, at the park bench near the lake." He didn't know if she'd come, but writing it felt like breathing again. The letter that changed everything. Days passed, then a week. Then one evening, Michael found a small envelope on his doorstep. No stamp, no address, just his name written in her handwriting. Inside a single line, "Meet me by the lake at 7 p.m. tomorrow." His hands shook. He didn't sleep that night. The reunion. When he reached the lake the next evening, the sun was setting, painting the water gold. And there she was, and standing by the bench, the wind playing with her hair. For a moment neither spoke. The silence said enough. Then Jessica smiled softly. "I got tired of writing letters," she whispered. Michael stepped closer. "Then talk to me instead." She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Only if you promise to listen this time." He smiled, always. As the last rays of sunlight touched them, Michael reached for her hand. And for the first time in months, both of them finally felt at home. The sunset that day felt like a new beginning. For the first time in months, Jessica and Michael stood side by side. No letters, no silence. Just the soft hum of the lake breeze carrying everything unsaid between them. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. Not with fear, but with honesty. "I was scared to see you again," Jessica said quietly. "I thought maybe you'd moved on." Michael looked at her, eyes steady. "Jessica, I waited because no one else ever felt like home." That simple line broke what was left of the distance between them. She stepped closer, and his hand found hers familiar, trembling, real. The first morning back. Jessica decided to stay for a few weeks. "Just to see how it feels again," she'd said. Michael didn't push her. He just wanted to breathe the same air again. They spent the mornings walking through the park, sometimes in silence, sometimes laughing like they used to. The city hadn't changed much, but the way they saw it had. One morning, Jessica noticed something. The scar near Michael's right hand. Faint but visible. She traced it gently with her fingers. "From the fight with Cole?" He nodded. "I shouldn't have let anger define me. You deserved better." She smiled faintly. "And yet you fought for me. Maybe that's all I ever wanted. A visit from the past." But the past has a cruel habit of knocking just when peace begins to return. 3 days after Jessica came back, Michael received an unexpected message. It was from Cole. "We need to talk. You'll want to hear this." Michael didn't reply. He deleted it immediately. But Jessica saw the tension in his eyes that evening. "Was it him?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "Cole." Jessica sighed. "You should meet him." Michael frowned. "After everything he did?" "Sometimes closure doesn't come through silence," she said softly. "It comes through truth." The meeting. They met at the same cafe where the first lie began. Cole looked thinner, tired, almost regretful. He didn't waste time. "Michael, I was wrong. About Jessica. About everything." Michael folded his arms. Now you realize that? Cole nodded. I was jealous. You had something real and I wanted to ruin it. I thought it would make me feel better. It didn't. Michael didn't speak, his jaw tight. Cole continued. I sent that video to my contacts, but one of them uploaded it to social media. It wasn't supposed to go that far. I'm sorry, Jessica. Jessica took a deep breath. Sorry doesn't erase pain, Cole. I know, Cole said quietly, but I needed to say it. Then unexpectedly, he reached into his bag and handed Michael a small flash drive. This has the full footage from that night, everything, including what I cut out. You deserve the truth. Michael stared at it for a moment, then slowly nodded. Goodbye, Cole. The flash drive. That night, they watched the footage together. It showed Jessica arriving at the hotel, and then minutes later, Evan appearing weak and pale, clutching his stomach. Jessica helped him inside, talking to the receptionist, signing forms. There was no mystery, no betrayal, only love, the quiet kind that sacrifices itself for others. When the video ended, Michael turned to her, tears filling his eyes. I should have believed you from the start. Jessica wiped his tears with her thumb. Belief isn't built overnight, Michael. It's built by staying when things fall apart. He took her hand and whispered, Then stay. This time don't leave. I'm not going anywhere, she said softly. The promise of tomorrow. Weeks passed. The city began to feel gentle again. They went back to their old coffee shop where laughter returned like an old friend. Jessica started a small art workshop for children, and Michael helped her design the space. He'd sit at the back watching her laugh with the kids, her eyes shining again, the way they used to. One evening, as they locked up the studio, Michael looked at her and said, You know what's crazy? Even after everything, I still feel like we're only at the beginning. Jessica smiled. That's because love doesn't have an ending, Michael. Just new chapters. They walked out hand in hand as the sky turned gold and pink, the colors of forgiveness and fresh starts. Later that night, Jessica sat by the window sketching. Michael came up behind her, resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you drawing? She smiled. Tomorrow. He kissed her hair softly. Then promise me we'll face it together. She turned her head and whispered, Always. And for the first time since everything began, neither of them feared what the next sunrise would bring. The days had begun to feel soft again, the kind of peaceful routine that people build only after surviving storms. Jessica and Michael were learning to live slowly, to rebuild trust one smile at a time. But peace is fragile, and sometimes the past doesn't knock. It simply walks right back in. A letter from home. It was a calm Sunday morning. Jessica was sorting through mail when she noticed a familiar handwriting on an old brown envelope. Her fingers froze. It was from her mother. She hadn't spoken to her in nearly 3 years. Not since the fight about Evan, her cousin, the same cousin she'd helped at the hotel. Michael noticed her expression. What is it? He asked. She handed him the envelope silently. The letter inside was short, only a few lines, but enough to shatter her calm. Jessica, I need to see you. It's about Evan. He's missing. Her heart dropped. Missing? She whispered. No, he was doing better. Michael took her hand. We'll find him. Whatever it takes. The journey back. By evening, they were on the road, heading toward her hometown, the small place by the river she'd once promised never to return to. The drive was quiet. Jessica stared out the window, lost in memories she'd tried hard to bury. The cold hospital corridors, her mother's disapproval, Evan's trembling hands. Michael reached over, placing his hand over hers. You're not alone this time, he said softly. She squeezed his hand, whispering, I know. That's what scares me, because now I have something to lose. The house by the river. When they arrived, the house looked the same. Old, silent, the garden overgrown. Jessica's mother opened the door. Her eyes were tired, her hair streaked with gray, but her voice was still firm. Jessica. Mom. The 2 words carried years of unspoken pain. For a moment, no one moved. Then Michael stepped forward. Mrs. Parker, I'm Michael. Jessica's. Her mother nodded curtly. I know who you are. Come in. The missing piece. Inside, the house smelled like memories and dust. Jessica's mother handed her a small folded paper. A note Evan had left behind before disappearing. Don't look for me. I don't deserve another chance. Jessica's voice cracked. He thinks he's still a failure. Her mother sighed, eyes wet. He's been clean for months, Jessica. But last week he found out about that video online. People were still whispering. He said he'd ruined your life. Then he vanished. Jessica covered her mouth, tears streaming down. Oh, Evan. Michael put an arm around her. We'll find him. I promise. The search. They spent days looking, asking around at old friends' houses, hospitals, shelters. Every no cut a little deeper. One night, exhausted and cold, Jessica sat on a bench near the river. I keep thinking, what if he doesn't want to be found? She whispered. Michael sat beside her. Then we'll just wait, like we did for each other. She looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. How do you still believe in me, in us, after everything? He smiled faintly. Because every time I almost lost you, I realized I didn't know how to stop loving you. Jessica leaned against his shoulder. You make it sound so simple. It is, he said softly, when it's real. The bridge. 2 nights later, a call came from the police. Someone matching Evan's description had been found, sitting near the old railway bridge. Alive but weak. Jessica and Michael rushed there. When she saw him, thin and pale but breathing, she ran and fell to her knees beside him. Evan, you scared me, she cried, hugging him tightly. Evan's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't want to hurt you anymore. You never hurt me, she said through tears. Your family. Michael stepped forward, his tone gentle. You have people who care, Evan. Let's take you home. For the first time in years, the word home didn't sound broken. A quiet redemption. Back at her mother's house, Jessica helped Evan rest while Michael talked quietly with her mom in the kitchen. You know, her mother said, looking at him, I used to think Jessica was foolish to chase love and forgiveness so blindly. Michael smiled faintly. She wasn't chasing. She was leading. Her mother's eyes softened for the first time. She found the right man. When Jessica joined them, her mother took her hand. I'm sorry, Jess, for everything. Jessica's lips trembled. I never stopped hoping to hear that. The river at dawn. The next morning they stood by the river, Jessica, Michael, and Evan. The sunlight shimmered across the water, calm and endless. Evan whispered, I'm going to start over. For real this time. Jessica smiled, tears in her eyes. We both are. Michael looked at her, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. This time, he said softly, let's promise not to run from the past. Let's walk through it together. She nodded. Together always. As the river flowed beneath them, it carried away not their pain but their forgiveness. The river had given them peace for a while. Jessica and Michael returned home with Evan safe and healing. And for a few months life felt gentle again. Laughter came back. The nights were filled with quiet music, late coffee talks, and the sound of rain that no longer hurt. But sometimes, before forever begins, life tests love one last time. The ring and the rain. It was a calm evening. Michael had been planning something for weeks. Something simple, yet deeply meaningful. He took Jessica to their favorite place, the lake where they had reunited. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the water gold. Jessica smiled. You always bring me here when you have something to say. He chuckled softly. Maybe because this place always reminds me of how we found our way back. Then he took a small box from his pocket and knelt down. Her breath caught. Jessica Parker, he said, voice trembling. You've seen every version of me. The lost, the angry, the broken. And you still chose to stay. I don't want a perfect life. Just one with you in it. Tears filled her eyes as he opened the box. A simple silver ring, shining softly in the fading light. She covered her mouth, whispering, Michael, will you marry me? For a moment the world stood still. Then she nodded, smiling through tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger as rain began to fall. Gentle, cleansing, like the sky was blessing their promise. The night turns cold. Later that night they drove back through the narrow hillside road. The rain now turning into a storm. Jessica laughed softly. Even the weather's dramatic about us. Michael smiled. Wouldn't be our story otherwise. But moments later a sharp flash of lightning blinded them, followed by a crash of thunder. The road ahead was slick. Michael swerved to avoid a fallen branch and then the car spun. Everything happened too fast. The sound of tires skidding. Jessica screamed, the world tilting. Then darkness. The hospital room. When Michael opened his eyes, everything was white and quiet. His head throbbed. His first word was her name. Jessica. A nurse rushed in. "You're awake!" "Please don't move too much. Where's Jessica?" he asked, his voice shaking. The nurse hesitated. "She's in surgery, but she's strong. Hold on." Michael tried to sit up, pain shooting through his ribs. "I need to see her." "Sir, please," the nurse said gently. "You both were lucky to survive." Lucky, the word didn't feel real. Hours that felt like years. He waited and counting every second. The clock on the wall mocked him with its slow ticking. Every time footsteps echoed in the hallway, his heart jumped. Finally, a doctor entered. "She's stable," he said with a tired smile. "But she lost a lot of blood. She's resting now. You can see her for a moment." Michael didn't wait for permission. The whisper of life. Jessica lay pale but peaceful, a faint smile ghosting her lips. He sat beside her, holding her cold hand in both of his. "Hey," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You scared me." Her eyes fluttered open slowly. "Michael, shh, don't talk. Just rest." She smiled weakly. "You didn't let go of me, even when everything was falling." He pressed his forehead to her hand. "Never, not once." Her voice trembled. "You remember the night we met? You said love feels like jumping without knowing where you'll land." He nodded, tears falling freely. "Yeah, and I'd still jump. Every time. For you," she smiled faintly. "Then we'll keep falling together." Her hand squeezed his, weak but alive. Days of healing. Weeks passed. Jessica slowly recovered. Her body was bruised, but her spirit, unbreakable. Evan visited often, bringing flowers and bad jokes. Her mother called daily, their bond growing stronger than ever. One morning, Michael walked into her room with 2 cups of coffee, one with cream, one without. She smiled. "Back to our old habits?" He grinned. "Some habits are worth keeping." They sat quietly, watching the sunlight spill through the blinds. For the first time in a long time, peace didn't feel temporary. The promise of forever. A few months later, under the same sky where he had proposed, they stood together again, this time surrounded by family and friends. Evan walked Jessica down the aisle, tears in his eyes. When Michael saw her, everything else disappeared. At the altar, they held hands as the wind carried their vows through the air. "I don't promise you a life without storms," Michael said softly. "I promise to hold your hand through everyone." "And I promise," Jessica whispered, "that even when the world forgets us, love will remember." As they kissed, the lake shimmered, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled softly. Not a warning this time. A blessing. Epilogue. 1 year later. A year later, they returned to the same lake, now with a small child running between them, laughing as rain began to fall. Jessica looked up at the clouds and smiled. "Seems like the sky still remembers us." Michael wrapped an arm around her. "Good, because I'll never forget." They stood there, watching the raindrops ripple across the water, and the same rain that once witnessed their pain now, dancing around there forever. The first year of their marriage felt like a dream. Michael had bought a small house near the lake, the same one where he proposed, where they almost lost everything, and where they found it all again. Jessica often said, "It's like this place remembers us, our love, our fights, our promises." Michael smiled every time. "Then it's the right place to build our forever." They spent days painting the walls, planting flowers, and arguing about which side of the bed belonged to whom. Little by little, it began to feel like home. The little things. Jessica had started teaching art classes at the local community center. Her laughter filled the rooms again, her hands always covered in paint. Michael, now working remotely for a design firm, often sneaked glances at her while she painted by the window. She'd catch him and grin. "You're staring again." "Just admiring my masterpiece," he'd reply. Life was simple and, for once, peaceful. But peace, as they both knew, never stays too long. The forgotten anniversary. It started with a small thing, one missed call, one forgotten dinner, one promise delayed. Jessica had planned a quiet evening for their first anniversary. Candles, music, and their favorite wine. Michael, buried in work deadlines, didn't notice the time slipping away. When he finally looked at his phone, it was past midnight. Dozens of missed calls. A single unread message, dinner's cold, so is my heart right now. He rushed home breathless and guilty. Jessica sat by the table, candles burnt out. Untouched food in front of her. She raised her hand, eyes red. Just don't say it was work again. I know I messed up. I'm sorry. She looked down, whispering, Do you even remember the last time we sat down and just talked? He wanted to say yes, but silence answered for him. The painting. For days, the distance grew quietly. Jessica poured her emotions into a new painting. One of a storm breaking apart two silhouettes trying to hold hands through the rain. When Michael saw it, he stood there quietly, guilt twisting his heart. He said softly, That's us, isn't it? Jessica didn't look up. It's what we'll become if we keep forgetting each other. That night he didn't sleep. He sat on the balcony till sunrise, realizing that love doesn't die in fights and it dies in silence. The morning of healing. The next morning, Michael woke early. He made her favorite breakfast, placed it beside her bed, and wrote a note. You're right. I forgot the day that changed my life. But I'll never forget you. Let's start over, tonight, just us. When Jessica woke, she read the note, tears softening her anger. That evening, he took her to the lake again, candles, flowers, and the same song that once played when he proposed. Jessica smiled through her tears. You remembered this time. He held her hand. I never forgot. I just lost sight of what matters. And that's you. She leaned into him, whispering, Then let's not lose each other again. The memory they built. Months passed, and slowly they rebuilt what was slipping away. They started keeping a memory book, one photo, one sentence every day. Today we laughed. Today we fought but made up. Today love won again. By the end of the year, the book was full. Not of perfect days, but of real ones. Jessica said one night, flipping through it, We're not a fairy tale, Michael. He smiled. No, we're something better, real. Epilogue, the photo frame. Years later, a new photo joined the wall above their fireplace. Jessica and Michael holding a baby girl, smiling through tired eyes and messy hair. Under it, a small note read, Love isn't built in a day. It's built in every day you choose to stay. The house by the lake stood quietly, filled with laughter, memories, and a love that had weathered every storm. One quiet morning, Michael received a call that could change everything. It was from a big design company in New York. A job offer that would double his income and open doors he'd only dreamed of. He sat on the porch, phone in hand, staring at the lake's reflection. Jessica came out with coffee and saw his face. What happened? She asked softly. He hesitated. It's an offer. In New York. They want me to move there for a year. Jessica froze. A year? Yeah, it's a big project. Jess, it could mean stability, a future for us. For Lily, their baby girl. She looked away, trying to smile. And what about us during that year? He reached for her hand. We'll make it work. We always do. But her heart whispered something else. Love can survive anything, but silence kills faster than distance. The goodbye. The day he left, the sky mirrored her heart, gray and heavy. Jessica tried to be strong, hiding her tears as he hugged Lily and kissed her forehead. Be good for Mommy, he whispered to their daughter. Jessica smiled weakly. Don't forget to call. Michael cupped her face gently. I won't, you're my home, Jess. As his taxi drove away, Jessica stood at the window, watching until the car disappeared into the mist. And then, she cried, quietly, endlessly, the calls and the miles. At first they called every day, mornings for her, nights for him. He'd tell her about the city lights, the noise, the endless rush. She'd tell him about Lily's first words, her paintings, her quiet evenings by the lake. But slowly, life interfered. Deadlines, time zones, missed calls, messages marked seen but never answered. One night, Jessica whispered to her phone, Michael, are we still talking? Or are we just updating each other? The screen stayed dark. The photo he forgot. Weeks later, Michael sent a text. Sorry, meeting ran late again. Miss you. Jessica stared at the words, tired of missing someone she used to sit beside every night. Scrolling through social media, she saw a photo tagged at a company event. Michael laughing with a woman beside him. Her heart sank. She zoomed in, then stopped. The woman had her hand on his shoulder, friendly maybe, but too familiar. Jessica didn't text him that night. She just turned off her phone and went to bed, tears staining her pillow. The letter that never sent. The next morning, she sat by the lake with her notebook, the one where she used to paint. Instead of colors, she filled it with words. Dear Michael, I know you love me, but sometimes love needs presence more than promises. I don't need the world, Michael. I just need to feel like I still exist in yours. She folded the page, placed it in an envelope, and tucked it into her sketchbook. She never sent it. The storm inside. Months passed. Michael called less, his voice always tired, distracted. Jessica stopped mentioning it. She had learned that sometimes silence hurts less than disappointment. Then one evening she heard a knock on the door. Evan stood there, Michael's old friend, the one who had always been like a brother to him. Jessica, he said softly, I saw Mike last week at a company event. He looked lost, really lost. Jessica looked away. We all get lost sometimes. Evan sighed. Then maybe it's time one of you finds the other again. The call. That night, Jessica finally called him. When he answered, his voice broke slightly. Jess? Yeah, it's me. They both stayed silent for a while, just listening to each other breathe. Finally, she said, Do you still think of home? He took a deep breath. Every day. But lately, I feel like I'm forgetting what it feels like. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Then come home, Michael. Not for the job. Not for the future, for us. The return. 2 weeks later, a taxi stopped outside the house by the lake. Jessica stepped outside, not believing what she saw. Michael, thinner, tired, eyes red, stood there with his suitcase. I couldn't stay, he said quietly. No success is worth losing the only person who made me feel alive. She ran to him, tears falling freely, wrapping her arms around him as Lily laughed and clung to his leg. He whispered, I'm sorry, Jess, for the distance, for the silence, for forgetting what home means. She held him tighter. You didn't forget. You just needed to find your way back. Epilogue, the distance within. That night, as they watched the sunset from their porch, Jessica said softly, You know, miles aren't what break people apart. It's forgetting to hold on. Michael kissed her forehead. Then I'll never let go again. The lake shimmered in front of them. The same lake that had witnessed their storms, their love, their silence, and now, their peace. For the first few weeks after Michael's return, everything seemed right again. The house by the lake was alive. Laughter echoed through the halls. Lily's tiny footsteps filled the rooms. And the air smelled like coffee and paint. But Jessica could feel it. Something in him was different. His smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. At night, he'd sit by the window, staring into the lake's reflection, as if searching for something he lost. One night, Jessica placed her hand on his shoulder. What are you looking for? She asked softly. He didn't turn. Myself, he whispered. I think I left him somewhere in New York. Her heart broke quietly, the shadows inside. Michael tried to return to his old life, painting, laughing, working, but the city had changed him. Deadlines had carved anxiety into his heart. Every sound reminded him of how far he had fallen from peace. Jessica began noticing the signs. He forgot things, he snapped over small mistakes. He stayed up late scrolling through old work messages as if he couldn't let go. One evening, he found Jessica painting in silence. The canvas showed a man's face and a broken, blurred, half in shadow. Michael asked softly, Who's that supposed to be? Jessica looked at him sadly. You. He froze. You think I'm broken? She shook her head. No, I think you feel broken. The cracked mirror. Weeks later, while shaving one morning, Michael looked into the bathroom. Mirror reason didn't recognize the man staring back. The eyes were tired. The jaw tense. The reflection looked like someone pretending to live. He smashed his hand against the sink, breathing hard. Jessica ran in, alarmed. Michael! What happened? He looked at her, tears mixing with the running water. I don't know who I am anymore, Jess. I'm not the man you married. She cupped his face gently. Then let's find him again, together. He broke down, finally letting the walls fall. And in that moment, for the first time in months, she saw the man she loved, raw and human. The therapy sessions. Jessica convinced him to see a counselor. At first he refused. I'm fine, he said every time. But one day Lily walked up to him with a drawing. It showed Mommy. Lily and a sad daddy sitting alone. He looked at the paper, then at Jessica. Maybe I'm not fine. Therapy was slow, painful. He talked about the pressure of work, the guilt of leaving, the fear that Jessica deserved someone better. Why do you think she stayed? The therapist asked one day. Michael thought for a long time, then whispered, because she believes in me more than I believe in myself. Jessica's quiet pain. While Michael healed, Jessica began to fade quietly. She was happy he was trying, but every time he went to therapy, she stayed home, alone, cleaning, painting, and taking care of Lily. She didn't tell anyone, but she felt invisible again. She wasn't angry, just tired. One evening, when Michael came home smiling for the first time in weeks, he found Jessica asleep on the couch, paint on her hands, exhaustion written across her face. He covered her with a blanket and whispered, "You've held me up for so long. Now it's my turn to hold you." The night of the mirror. That night, Michael stood before the same mirror he once hated, but this time he saw something different. He saw scars, but also strength. He saw loss, but also love that never stopped fighting. He looked over his shoulder, where Jessica now stood in the doorway, sleepy but smiling softly. "What do you see?" she asked. He took a deep breath. The man who almost lost everything, but didn't. She walked to him, wrapped her arms around his waist and whispered, "Then don't forget him again." The letter in the drawer. A few days later, Jessica found something tucked inside Michael's old sketchbook, a folded note, yellowed with time. It read, "Dear Jessica, I don't know if I'll ever find the words to say how sorry I am, but if I ever come back, I'll spend the rest of my life learning how to love you better. Michael." She pressed the letter to her heart, tears falling silently. When he came home that night, she just hugged him. No words, no explanations. He didn't ask why. He just held her tighter, both of them finally whole again. Epilogue, the stranger no more. Months later, Michael began teaching design part-time. Jessica's art classes grew and Lily started school. The house by the lake was louder than ever, full of life, laughter, and warmth. One morning, Michael looked in the mirror again and smiled. He didn't see a stranger anymore. He saw a man loved, forgiven, and alive. It began like any other morning. The sunlight slipped through the curtains. Lily's laughter echoed from her room, and the smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Jessica was humming softly while preparing breakfast when she suddenly stopped. Her hand trembled slightly. The plate almost slipped from her grip. "Jess?" Michael called from the living room. She blinked, trying to steady herself. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just dizzy." But she wasn't fine. Not that day. Not for the next few days that followed. The doctor's words. After a week of fatigue, headaches, and nausea, Michael insisted on taking her to the hospital. Jessica protested at first, but he refused to take chances. The doctor ran some tests, and the results took longer than expected. When he returned, his face was calm. Too calm. "Jessica," he said gently, "there's a small tumor near the base of your skull. It's not malignant, but it's pressing on a nerve. That's why you've been feeling dizzy." The room fell silent. Michael's heart froze. "A tumor?" "It's operable," the doctor assured. "We just need to schedule it soon." Jessica nodded quietly, holding Michael's hand, her eyes calm, but her heart thundering. The night of fear. That night she sat by the lake alone, staring at her reflection. The stars shimmered above, but all she could think about was, what if I don't wake up after surgery? Michael joined her, sitting beside her in silence. "Say it," she whispered. "Say you're scared too." He swallowed hard. "I am. More than I've ever been." Jessica leaned against him. "Promise me something. Anything. If I don't make it—" He turned sharply. Don't you dare finish that sentence." She smiled faintly. "Then promise you'll keep living. For Lily, for both of us." Michael held her tightly, tears falling freely. "No promises like that. Because you're going to stay. You have to." The sketchbook of memories. The next morning, Jessica began a new project. She called it the Book of Tomorrows. Every page held a drawing. Moments she wanted Lily and Michael to remember. The first day they met. Their wedding under the rain. Lily's first steps. The house by the lake. Each sketch had a small note written beside it. "If I'm not there, remember, I always was." Michael found her drawing late one night and broke down. He knelt beside her chair, whispering, "Stop writing like you're leaving." She looked at him gently. I'm not writing about leaving. I'm writing so we never forget living. The day of the surgery. The hospital smelled like fear and antiseptic. Jessica wore a light blue gown, her hair tied back, eyes calm but tired. Michael sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Do you remember what you told me when we first met? She asked softly. He nodded. That love feels like jumping without knowing where you'll land. She smiled. Then I'm jumping again, just promise you'll catch me. He kissed her forehead. Always. As the nurses wheeled her away, she turned her head one last time. Their eyes met. A silent promise passing between them, hours of waiting. Michael waited in the hallway, pacing endlessly. Every second felt like a year. He prayed, whispered her name, stared at the door, prayed again. Lily slept in Evan's arms nearby, unaware of the weight in the room. After 4 hours, the surgeon finally appeared. Michael's heart stopped. She's stable, the doctor said with a tired smile. The operation went well. She'll need rest and observation, but she's out of danger. Michael sat down, burying his face in his hands, tears of relief streaming down his cheeks. The first word. When Jessica woke, her vision was blurry, but she saw him immediately, asleep beside her bed, holding her hand even in his dreams. She whispered, voice soft and weak, "You caught me." Michael woke instantly, his eyes wet with joy. Every time, he whispered back. The healing days. Jessica's recovery was slow but steady. Michael never left her side, reading her books, brushing her hair, making her laugh even when it hurt to smile. One afternoon, she whispered, "You didn't just save me, Michael. You saved us." He smiled softly. "You were never the one who needed saving. Jess, you were the reason I learned how to fight." Epilogue. The unwritten tomorrow. Months later, Jessica returned to teaching art. Her first painting after recovery was titled Tomorrow, a sunrise over a lake, with 2 figures holding hands in the light. During her gallery show, Michael stood behind her, proud and speechless. She looked at him and said, "See? We wrote our tomorrow together." He smiled. "And I'll keep writing it. For the rest of my life." The seasons had turned again. The lake glistened under the soft light of spring. Birds returned to the trees that had once stood bare the day Jessica went into surgery. Michael stood on the porch holding 2 mugs of coffee. Jessica joined him, her hair shorter now but glowing under the sunrise. "You know," she said with a gentle smile, "this morning feels different." Michael handed her a cup. "Different how?" "Like peace," she replied. "Like we've finally arrived where we were always meant to be. The life they built." Jessica had healed beautifully. The tumor was gone, and though there were days she still felt dizzy, she never complained. Instead, she painted more than ever, filling their home with color and light. Michael had opened a small cafe near her art studio, calling it J&M Brews. Locals loved it, especially because every wall was covered with Jessica's paintings. Lily was in kindergarten now, her laughter echoing through the cafe every afternoon. Their life was quiet, humble, but full of meaning. The letter in the drawer. One evening, Jessica was cleaning her studio when she found an old envelope inside her sketchbook, one she had written before her surgery. The front said, "To Michael, if I never get to say goodbye." Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a simple note written in faded ink. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't finish our story. But I want you to know in every page I lived with you was already perfect. You were my home, my reason, my peace. If there's another life, I'll find you there too. Jessica." Tears filled her eyes. She walked to Michael, handed him the letter, and said softly, "You were never supposed to read this, but maybe now you should." He read it slowly, then looked up at her. "I did find you again," he said quietly, "even in this life." Jessica smiled, tears shining. Then maybe this is the forever we were searching for. The art exhibition. Months later, Jessica held her first solo exhibition in New York. The gallery was filled with people from all over, critics, friends, and strangers drawn by the raw emotion of her art. The final piece in the collection was a massive painting titled, "The Forever We Found." It showed a couple standing at the edge of a lake, holding hands as their reflections merged into one, symbolizing 2 souls, one love. As people admired it, Michael stood quietly behind her. He didn't need to say anything. The pride in his eyes said it all. The proposal that never ended. Later that night, when the gallery emptied and the lights dimmed, Jessica turned to him with a playful smile. "Do you remember the first time you proposed to me?" He laughed softly. "Under that broken streetlight in Boston. How could I forget?" "Well," she said, pulling a small ring box from her purse. "It's my turn now." Michael blinked in surprise. "Jess, what are you doing?" She knelt down, right there in the middle of the gallery. "Michael Carter," she said with a shaky laugh, "will you marry me?" "Again? Not because we need to, but because we still choose to." His eyes filled with tears. He pulled her up into his arms. "Always, Jessica. 1,000 times always." The final scene. The next morning, they returned to their favorite spot by the lake. The same place where they once feared goodbye. Now they sat quietly, watching Lily run through the grass, her laughter chasing butterflies. Jessica leaned on Michael's shoulder. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "what love really is?" He smiled. "I used to. But then I met you." She chuckled. "That's cheating." He turned to face her. "No, that's forever." The sun rose higher, painting gold across the water. Jessica took his hand and whispered, "Promise me something." He looked into her eyes. "What's that?" "When the world forgets us, promise you'll still remember." Michael pressed his forehead to hers. "How could I ever forget the woman who taught me what forever means?" Epilogue: The Forever We Found. Years later, Jessica's paintings hung in galleries across the world, but in every piece, one thing remained constant: the reflection of two people by a lake. Because no matter where life took them, their love always led back to the same place: home. And if you ever stood by that lake at sunset, you might still see them, hand in hand, two souls that never learned how to say goodbye.